Happy faces. Happy faces hide the turmoil and deceit. A lifetime of lies you will not beat. You've been exposed, and so you hide the guilt and pain you feel inside, blaming others for the same in an effort to hide your own pain. A happy face is what you think we see, but there is no authenticity. The smart and bold see beyond your words. Motives and actions cannot be hidden. The lives you've ruined, you won't be ridden. The burden of pain is yours alone, but most won't ever be known. It's stuffed so deep inside, all you can do is smile and hide. I wrote this working through some generational issues in my family and felt it was the right time to finally share as I embark on a new journey of renewed authenticity. Life is interesting as we all tell each other how important the truth is, but we often leave out key details so others are left to create narratives that are less than true and often patently false. So, whose ultimate responsibility does that falsehood lie with? I continually think of the quote from Black Panther as the son pleads with his father as to why he didn't tell him or the nation the truth. His father's response is haunting. He was the truth I chose to omit. I'm choosing today not to omit truth for the sake of my children and my legacy. And with that being read, I want to welcome you back to the 127 Fit podcast. Today's guest is an athlete, father, founder of Shift Real Estate, team writer for Weston Backcountry. Today's guest is Jeremy Antone Anderson. Jeremy, I want to welcome you to the 127 Fit podcast.
Thanks so much. Glad to be here.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So we're going to just take a deep dive into kind of a little bit of a warm-up, just kind of get things kicked off, Jeremy. The first question that I have for you is, how do you start your day, and do you have some sort of kind of morning routine that you like to stick to on most days?
My life with kids is a little crazy, and kind of depends on how the snow is and the weather is in the hills and who's getting. But one of the first things we do is get up in the morning is suck down a big glass of water with some vitamins, and then make myself a shake, and then I like to go wake up the kids and do what I call a snuggle attack.
Perfect. What does that snuggle attack look like? Just jumping on top of them, or what?
Jumping on top of them, and I sing a little song, and it goes.
Okay, cool.
It's like snuggle attack. Awesome. I'm gonna snuggle till I break your back. Just like
perfect,
squeezing them real tight. Yeah,
beautiful.
So some of them like it, some of them don't.
Okay, that's cool. It gets them up. It gets them up though, right?
It gets them up and going. Yeah.
Cool. So if you don't mind me asking, like with the shake, is it kind of like a protein shake, or is it like some sort of like green shake, or kind of what does that shake look like?
It's a protein shake.
Okay, cool.
I usually do Progenics More Muscle.
Perfect.
In the morning. Throw a little bit of oil in there as well.
Okay, awesome. Very good. So do you have a favorite book or a book that you gift often?
I don't give books as much as I used to, because I think everybody's at a different stage in their life, and
Absolutely.
I don't think there's like one answer for anybody. But as I get to know people, there's definitely recommendations that I make. The book that I'm reading that I have right now is Gary Vee, Crushing It. It's just I think there's a lot of people I think look at entrepreneurs and it's only about if you want to make money, and they don't realize that there's a lot of self-help that goes involved in there, and just tangible things that you can add to your day to make you more successful no matter what your goals are.
Awesome. Yeah, I've heard that book has come up I think a couple times on some previous podcast interviews. And then Gary Vee, like he has a podcast, and on all the social media platforms, YouTube and stuff. And I know a lot of people resonate with him and his message. So that's super cool. Do you have a favorite quote or mantra, Jeremy, that maybe kind of encourages you or helps you make it through your days?
I do. Mark Twight, saw him when I first moved out to Colorado back in the early 90s. I saw him at an EMS, an old climbing store, give a slideshow, and he walked out with a Carhartt jacket on and had in red Sharpie across the back written "Talk minus action equals 0."
Love it.
And
cool.
that's something I think about every day.
Awesome. Very cool. Now, do you have a favorite podcast or a kind of a go-to podcast that you appreciate and enjoy?
Yeah, I mean, Gary Vee is up there, but also, it's this quintessential climbing, Colorado podcast is Chris Kalous and his eNormalcast, and
Cool.
I think all of us out here just love that.
Awesome. Very cool. So, Jeremy, I just kind of want to start moving in the direction of your kind of your backstory, because I know that all of us on some level are products of our home environment growing up. We're products of the adults that were in our lives when we were growing up. Doesn't mean we have to exactly live the lives that they lived or anything like that, but all of us have some sort of part of our upbringing, those adults and those people that were in our lives at that time still with us today. So for me and the listeners that I have for the 127 Fit podcast, it's important that we kind of get that backstory so that we can have a better understanding of who you are today. So if you don't mind, Jeremy, just starting to touch on a little bit, maybe like where you grew up and kind of like what the childhood looked like, and just kind of unpack that would be great.
Yeah. Well, I was born in Detroit and spent a little time on the north side of Chicago, but moved to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, the UP, when I was in third grade. And that was the last grade that I attended public school, was third grade.
Okay.
So I like to joke, I tell my kids that my formal education ended in third grade.
That's fun.
And so, I grew up on a large youth camp, 365 acres, 15 acres I would mow. And it was just a wild existence as a kid, running around with guns and fishing every day and swimming and skiing, cross-country skiing, snow machines, dirt bikes. It was a blast as a kid, as a child. And there's a lot of opportunities that I had to experience things that I wouldn't have had if I had been, living in the city or, going to school every day,
Right.
like a normal kid. But there's also, there's some isolation and some loneliness that was because of that as well.
Mm-hmm. Now, were mom and dad strong influences, or were they present in your life at that time?
They were. In fact, I would say my dad was my, the person I was around the most, because his commute was across a couple acres of mown lawn, to the administration building of the camp, and
Right.
so we'd see him just about every day. When the summertime rolled around and the camping season really started, though, he was gone predominantly throughout the summer.
Okay.
So it was a little bit more of like just running around by yourself
Yeah.
and self-management. Classic older kids, like parents don't parent that way anymore. these
Right.
days.
Yeah. It's a different generation we're living in for sure. So now, in regards to being homeschooled, what was kind of the impetus behind that, and then was there maybe a struggle for you personally as you grew up being homeschooled, maybe having some of that seclusion from maybe like the public school kids, and kind of what did that look like? Because I know for me, I've had a lot of different interactions with kids that were homeschooled, and a lot of times, just to be straightforward, they're a little bit different. You know what I mean? Because maybe they don't have that interaction with other kids as much, or they're maybe just in a more homeschool group and it's the same kids, and there's just a lot of different dynamics going on with all that. So would you just maybe share a little bit if there was maybe a struggle with that, and kind of what that looked like for you?
Yeah, I think the reason I think was religiosity is why it started, and it started right before we moved to Michigan. We were still in Illinois. When we got to Michigan, it was always said, hey, in high school, if you want to go to school, you can, but it was so far away. I mean, it was like over 20 miles,
Oh, wow.
to go to school, and I just didn't have that motivation at that point to
Right.
go there and start going to school 5 days a week. So the challenge was, I played a lot of tennis and skied, and I was in a lot of different sports growing up, and so I had a group of friends within the school. But at the same time, I never really broke into the crowd. And so as a teenager, you kind of grow and you have some isolation, and there's a little bit of anger that sets in. And, to back it up a little bit before that, there was also some childhood trauma that happened to me before that allowed that isolation to grow. Of which, looking back as an adult, it probably would have been healthy for me to be around other kids at that point to grow beyond that. But if I would have been asked to do that at that point in my life, I didn't want to do it.
Right.
Because it would have meant that I would have had to be more uncomfortable, and I would have had to grow, and I would have had to deal with the, a little bit of the anger that was welling up inside of me. And there was comfort in, having a father that was all around and making most of the decisions for you, so I didn't have to deal with a lot of that anger that was welling up inside of me through that isolation and through the trauma that happened to me when I was a kid.
Yeah. Now, in regards to this trauma, did this come through part of kind of the religious background that you were a part of when you were a kid, or was it something separate from that?
Yeah, without no, it was a direct relation to the environment that I was in as a kid, and without going into a lot of detail on that, spare your audience, some of that stuff. It was it was a violation of people that were in a position of trust with me as a young child and then as a preteen, and it was something that was attempted to talk about and it never was really allowed or dealt with. And so I was left for that to fester and that to grow. And through that, there is a positive thing that came out of that is, I learned how to compartmentalize fear. But I never fully dealt with a lot of the anger and the isolation, and even into my adult years, when you read what you read about my Instagram, that authenticity that I'm really trying to have now as I'm in my midlife was something that I could never have before. I was very closed off to a lot of people, and it hurt a lot of relationships that I had throughout the years because people weren't always allowed to, and there was only so much that I would allow them to be let in. And would that have changed if I had been around a bunch of other teenagers and been able to, do stuff like that and, been part of the public education system? I don't know. It could have gotten worse. It very well could have gotten worse through that. So it's just, those are things you look back on and you never know, but I know what decisions I can make today to combat that, the past that I have and how I allowed, by not having the right tools to deal with it, how I allowed those feelings to fester and grow.
So, moving through high school and everything, was if you don't mind me asking, was anger kind of a driving force in your life then through high school and through like your 20s and stuff, or was there some other emotions and feelings that were maybe a little bit more dominant than the anger?
Well, I would say that I wouldn't call I don't think I've ever been an angry person, but I think every once in a while I can get unhinged. And I think there's a lot of people out there that may not have that anger, but there is something inside them that's churning and burning, and if it's not dealt with, all of a sudden it's just going to come out, and you don't think you're capable of something, but then you potentially do that. And there's definitely moments that I had in my 20s, where I was, like a little more than unhinged. As most 20-year-olds are, because there's not a lot of emotional intelligence at that point, but you've got the ability to take out loans and buy houses and all this stuff, but you're not really your life can become really unmanageable very quickly. So I would say that was the festering part, but what was really the emotions that I struggled with which is kind of crazy for people to hear this, is there was a self-confidence thing and a fear of rejection that I really felt because I never developed a lot of deep interpersonal relationships at a young age because of the isolation, and then also that that kind of anger and not feeling necessarily worthy. And a lot of that had to do with just the isolation of where I grew up. And I think one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot lately is when we talk about authenticity, we talk about making ourselves available to other people, showing love, care, and empathy, and I think a lot of people don't do that because of the fear of rejection. A lot of times, if you look at a circle of friends that people have, how many of those friends and how many of those close relationships have they actually chosen and brought into their life? And how many of those people have they just ended up with because they've eliminated all the ones that they're scared of? And so it's if because being authentic, showing love, care, and empathy, and if somebody else rejects that, that pain hurts more because you're really showing who you are.
Right.
But if I'm eliminating somebody else by judging them for who they are, I don't have to let them in and judge me. Mm-hmm. And so I just end up with whoever's left standing, whoever less to judge for.
Right. And that's a comfort zone then,
it's
right?
It's totally a comfort zone.
Right.
Yeah.
And then because you're in that comfort zone, you're surrounding yourself with the people that make you comfortable or don't make you uncomfortable. You don't grow. You don't grow as a human being, and you just basically stay the same. And that's what I see with a lot of people in our culture and our world, Jeremy, is people that are the hamster in the wheel. They might be moving, they're not going anywhere. It's the same story day after day because they're not seeking that discomfort. Mm-hmm. So branching off of that, what is the importance, and not just in regards to the people that we surround ourselves with, Jeremy, but what is the importance of seeking discomfort in our lives so that we can mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally grow? Because for me personally, it's not fun, but I know that I will never grow in the comfort zone. So I'm personally in a lot of different areas always trying to seek that discomfort so that I can continue to grow and mature and one day reach that full potential that I believe I was made for. So just touch on that in your life, the importance, and for other people's lives, the importance of seeking discomfort and getting out of that comfort zone.
Yeah. Well, I would break it down to a real personal application. Is I think if you're really honest with yourself, all of us have something that scares us about ourselves.
Absolutely.
You know, or there's a blind spot. You can call it two different things. You know, maybe you're not aware of it yet, but if you are self-aware and you've done some examination of yourself, there's something that scares you about yourself. And if that's left unchecked by not having people around you who are going to challenge you and hold you accountable for your actions, and you've surrounded yourself with people like we just talked about, who you've chosen to position in your life, so you go unchallenged and you don't have any accountability, you start flexing. Let's say it's like having two arms, but you're only doing curls with your right arm. So that deficiency, that thing that should scare you about your personality, becomes stronger and it becomes dominant than what was really the best quality of your personality. And oftentimes, I think in our society, those deficiencies that we should really be working on and controlling and learning to manage, people can see success from that. People can see success from narcissism. People can see success from being mean, from being angry, from being super, super aggressive, mm-hmm. to a point where they're hurting other people. And so when you start to see success, the next thing you know, you're like, oh man, these curls on that right arm are really working out. I'm going to work it out even more. And then pretty soon, what you're doing is you're walking into a room and all you're showing is your right arm. Mm-hmm. You're not showing them that you're not being vulnerable at all, because you flex this deficiency so much and you've gotten away with it because you haven't put anybody around you to be accountable, that you've created a whole different part of your personality.
Right.
And you're not even the same person that you were 5 years ago. And you, because you're seeing success from this, you're excited about it.
Right.
And
right.
you grow even more into it.
Mm-hmm.
You know. And
then because you're just focused on that one strength, or however you want to word that, you begin to develop as a human being. You basically you're underdeveloped, right? Because if you're just focused on one area and you're not focused on those weak spots or blind spots, then you're moving in one direction. You're underdeveloped and you're never going to reach your full potential. Correct?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, it's just like the guy who only does does chest and buys in
right.
the gym.
Yeah.
He walks around. He's got skinny little bird legs.
Yeah. Chicken legs. Yeah.
Chicken legs. But I mean, if somebody's only, if you've surrounded yourself with people that's all they care about, mm-hmm. And that's what they want out of life too, then you're fine, right? And you think you're fine is really what it comes down to.
Right.
But if that network ever breaks down for you and you've got to grow outside of that, you've got to go back. You don't just, and that's, I think the crazy thing is, you don't just go back like 3 or 4 years before that, right? You got to go all the way back to when you started grooming that part of your personality, and that outgrew the rest of the positive things mm-hmm. that you had that you chose not to work on.
Right.
And that's where a lot of people aren't willing to experience that pain and dig that deep and really go back and work on this so that they can truly grow and offer something more than just being on that hamster wheel all the time, like what you were talking about.
So what's the importance for you, Jeremy, as an individual, of knowing who you are and why you're here, and like just having that foundation of maybe some core values and things of that nature? Like, is that a big part of your life, that you have some sort of foundation and you know why you're here, or not?
I think there's part of me that's like, the old Buddhist quote, this is this, right?
Right.
And I have to deal with this every day. But I think the big thing that I look to every day, everybody's looking to something greater than themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes like that's their having a McLaren, or having the 5-bedroom house, and so the big house and that stuff, and they think that that's going to be that greater thing, and that's going to be their legacy. But for me, my legacy is I want my kids to grow up and to be intellectually effective and emotionally intelligent, so they can go out and interact with other people, and through their interactions just bless people. And I feel like there's, because of where I've been and the things I've worked on over the years, I feel like I have interpersonal relationships with other people are greater than myself too, and just blessing people. Like, it could be in a lift line, a dad struggling with his kid, and it's just a smile and a joke.
Right.
There's blessings that can come in so many different ways that can
Absolutely.
help change people's lives, and I just want to leave that kind of legacy where my private self is as much as my public self as possible, and by showing that to people, it can affect change in their lives.
Yeah. So like the word serve or services sounds like that's something that is a driving force in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think from the outside looking in, I don't think people always see that, because I'm involved in a lot of very selfish pursuits,
Mm-hmm.
that are self-serving, like climbing and skiing mountains,
Right.
stuff like that. And they're pretty lonely, but there's a lot of things that can affect change along the way. And
Absolutely.
I think as a society and our culture in America, we're so obsessed with the end goal. When have we arrived? When have we gotten there? That we miss out on all of the wonderful things along the journey. There's so many times that I've gone to Alaska, or Colorado, wherever I've been, and I failed. The objective hasn't. There's climbs that I failed on, 5, 6, 7, 8 times, and I still don't have them. And I'm okay with that now. When I was younger, I was just like, it really hurt.
Right.
But now I realize, the relationships that I built going into these, the hike, the drives, the flights, the planning, or just hiking in and seeing a nesting pair of owls, or being like eye to eye with an eagle, and just it's just, there's so many wonderful things that I've experienced that that I think, even like when we're walking around and we're interacting with each other, you're so obsessed about getting into the office and punching that clock and then getting home so you can watch your show, that you miss out on these, like just in the grocery store line, a small conversation you can have with somebody else, where you can just bless them and you can touch their life and just show them a random act of kindness, and just connect with somebody. And it's amazing how, like, I call it a social experiment. There's times where I'll walk through the grocery store and I'll tell my kids, I'm going to say hi to everybody in this grocery store, and let's count how many people say hi back. And it's just fun to do, because people are like, oh my goodness, he's talking to me, and their eyes dart away. Wow. And it's just like, why are we so closed off to each other, when just showing love, care, and empathy towards each other could be such a massive change in how we interact.
Yeah, beautiful. Appreciate you sharing that. So I want to kind of step back into your backstory. So you finished up high school. What did some of those earlier years post high school kind of look like for you? And maybe if you don't mind sharing, like maybe what was kind of your career or jobs, and maybe some experiences that you had in your 20s.
Yeah, so I moved out here to Colorado in '94,
okay.
And got a job at a sporting goods store. And that was the beginning of the end. That's when I started, skiing and climbing all the time. I was in Alaska like a year later, and climbing Denali for the first time, and it kind of snowballed into this, lifestyle that I had. Got married right when I moved out here as well. That ended very quickly. It was just too young. I didn't know a lot about myself. When we talk about like being guarded,
Right.
Definitely didn't let her in, and I definitely caused some pain in that relationship. But moved forward. I was an apprentice electrician for a little while, did that, and then I got into real estate.
Cool.
And I've been doing that ever since. I own my own company.
Yeah.
I own my own company for about 16 years now, and it's kind of a lifestyle builder. People ask me, like, what did you want to do when you were young? And it's just I never had a career that I wanted to do. I mean, going to school, higher education was just not on my agenda. Mm-hmm. And I would always be like, I want to be Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
I just want to go around and have adventures and do crazy stuff. And so the real estate thing is just kind of it supports the lifestyle.
Yeah.
And it's fits real well in, and so it's something I've just kept doing for a long time.
Now, what was the impetus for you to move out to Colorado then?
My parents moved out here, and I wanted to ski. I wanted to ski big lines. That's
okay.
really what I wanted to do. I just wanted to ski all the time, and so Colorado, Montana, Wyoming were on the list. And since they were out here, moved out to Colorado.
Cool. Now, in regards to, I want to touch on the real estate side of things. You're the founder of Shift Real Estate. That's correct, right?
Correct.
Awesome.
Yep.
So, just however much you want to maybe share about it, but what's a lesson or two in the 16 years that you've been in real estate? What's a lesson or two that you can share with myself and the listeners, Jeremy, that you've kind of learned through real estate that is very applicable for your life today and some of the listeners' lives, and maybe something that they can kind of take away from some of your experiences and lessons that you've learned through real estate?
Well, I would say one of the thing with relationships that I shared earlier about people eliminating other people, that is exactly how people buy houses. They eliminate houses. They don't necessarily choose one.
Okay.
They eliminate houses. Most people don't have the financial capabilities to choose the home that they really want.
Okay.
So what they end up doing is they say, here's 10 options, here's something wrong with this, here's something wrong with that, here's something wrong with this. Okay, this is the best solution. And I think that's kind of how I developed a little bit more of that theory with relationships. But as far as, just how my business runs and everything, it's really about connecting with people and understanding the pain points. And that's where the empathy comes in. And, I think empathy gets a really bad rap in the business world and in people's interpersonal relationships, because people think that if you're empathetic, you're just going to be like this mealy mouth, no backbone, everything. But
right.
if you really understand what somebody's going through, that's when you can advise them and say, hey, here's the problems that you're facing. Here's the pathway to correct those problems. And that's the same way. That's business. That's how you become successful in business. You identify what the challenges are. You identify what the problems are, the pain points, and then you steer things to a more positive outcome through effective decision making. Interpersonal relationships are the same way.
Yeah. And life comes down to relationships, right? I mean, because I tell people all the time, it's like, I don't care what job you have, and maybe it's a little bit different now because of the remote type stuff that's going on. But even with that, like, even through the computer or your phone, like, we're always going to have to be interacting with people. And if your people skills suck, it's going to be pretty hard for you to reach your full potential and be successful in whatever avenue you choose. I mean, would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my buyers or my property management business, my clients are not the homes, that I'm managing or that I'm selling. My clients are the people that are buying and selling them or that own those homes.
Right. Yep. So the reading that I did earlier to start things off with the podcast is a post that you put on your Instagram. It's your writing. And so I just want to have you just share a little bit what writing means to you. And I know for me personally, writing is a way for me to express kind of some deep inner things that are inside of me. And it's a great outlet for me because I feel like when I get things down on a piece of paper or even typing, I can kind of release it and move on. So what's the importance of writing for you, Jeremy?
It's, I've about 5 years ago, I made this choice to what I call go on a quest for truth. And in doing that, I've always liked to write. But in doing that, there's a lot of familial and generational issues that came up, and what I needed to do is I needed to get some thoughts on paper, because how I process things is, I mean, I might go for a long mountain run and have snippets of thoughts that'll come through, but something inevitably comes up, like you got to snap back to reality. Right. While you're doing that. And what writing allowed me to do is to put something down and then revisit it and have it evolve and have my mind be able to really process the idea, the philosophy, the pain that I was dealing with, and then be able to grow from that. And so, writing something down, what I've written may actually change and evolve over the course of 6 months as I continue to revisit and figure out exactly what I want to say, but how I'm processing something at the same time.
Mm-hmm. So I noticed when I was reading some of your writings, a lot of them kind of like rhyme and things of that nature. Is that something that just kind of comes naturally, or are you trying to do that kind of on purpose, or what does that look like?
Yeah, I'm definitely not a rapper. It's just something that comes. I think it's kind of fun to play with words.
Yeah,
I'm not. I mean, obviously, we talked about this. I'm not the most educated individual. So one of the best ways to kind of overcome that is to search for words, and that's one reason why sometimes it takes me a long time to write something, and it may be months in the works, and is because I process that, and in my mind thinks very metaphorically, allegorically as well, and so that's why some of my writings are that way, because I'll just running, climbing, skiing, whatever I'm doing, sometimes it's a mindless activity and you're zoning out and you get into the flow state. You're not really thinking about something, your mind is wandering someplace completely else, and you just come up with these, a way of thinking about something that you've been wrestling with, and you're like, wow, I could put those words together and everything. So it's something, and I sing silly songs to my kids all the time, so it's just something I really enjoy.
I love it, man. Yeah, I consider myself, I think I made up this word, I don't know, but I consider myself like a wordy. There's something, ever since I was a little kid, I've always loved quotes. I love words, and for me, writing comes very naturally. It's like sometimes I start writing and then I reread it, or read it to myself out loud, and I'm like, where did that come from? But it's just stuff that's like deep in my spirit, deep in my heart, But yeah, there's something for me, and it sounds like for you, there's just something about words, you know what I mean? I can't explain it. I think it's just something that's maybe we're born with or put inside. Now I want to ask you, staying on the subject of writing, is writing ever burdensome for you, or not per se? Because for me, I know that I'm very anal about how I write, so sometimes I'm okay, I need to put this on paper, but I don't want to because I know I'm gonna erase and cross out, and it's gonna be such a process for me to get down. I just kind of ignore it. But then eventually I'm like, I've got to get this on paper, I type it up, so it kind of can become burdensome for me. Is that the same for you, or not per se?
I think historically in my life I would agree with that, because I think too, sometimes when you put something on paper, or in your computer, however you want to put it, is the minute it leaves your mind, there's more ownership over it, because you're like, oh, there's potential to really share this, there's potential to allow someone else to read this and critique me, and so I really need to know what I'm trying to communicate here, and I have to beat this up, and so there is a little bit of a burden there, okay, am I ready to actually write this down and and then have this be critiqued and ask questions and have to defend my point of view at this point? And that's something I wrestled with significantly up until a couple of years ago. So I do understand that. Now I feel more of a burden with not having a piece of paper with me or something to jot notes down on, because there'd be some times where life is so busy with running a business, trying to be an athlete and a father at the same time, that I'll think of something, I'm like, oh man, I really want to write about this, and then next thing you know, it's gone, and I'm like, all right, I got to get back to that point where I have that thought in my head. So it's a little different now, and but there was definitely a transition, and I think having, not that I don't care, but having the ability to put it out there, on social media and get some positive feedback from people, and have them say, hey, this really touched me. I understand what you're going through, and this, I really appreciate you sharing this. It gives me, there's a lot of power in your words. That emboldens me to share more.
Yes.
So I think if anybody is listening to this and is wondering if they should write something, they definitely should.
Absolutely.
And share it with some close friends to start out with, and then build from there.
And I really think the writing and the sharing, and we have this great, however you want to look at it, I think social media it's a gift. But this gift of social media, so you get to write and then you get to post it on social media, you get this feedback. I think this is tying into you kind of your kind of that quest of being more authentic and real and open through social media. Because when you put your feelings and emotions, you write them down and you put them out there for the world to see. Like that's like this is me. Like this is deep inner stuff that I've put down and I'm sharing with you. So that only really magnifies and helps you be more real and authentic, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's part of that process of me trying to have my my private self match my public self as much as possible.
Yeah. Now you mentioned something, and I want to touch on a little bit. A few minutes ago, you said something about you've been or were on a quest for truth. What does that kind of mean to you personally, Jeremy? And what does that process look like? And do you feel like you found truth, or is that still something? Do you believe it's going to be a process till the day that you die?
I think for all of us, it's a process till the day we die, because there's so much gaslighting that goes on out in the world today, and whataboutism, and we're constantly made to feel like we're crazy because we don't want what other people want and everything. So you have to be grounded in what your truth is.
Yes.
And I think so I think that's going to be an ongoing process. But what I was referencing about 5 years ago is there is a lot of things generationally and ancestrally in my family that I really had to wrestle with. Narratives that were created that were patently false, that I had to back up, go back 34 years earlier, and even generations earlier, to find out exactly what was happening, because people weren't talking to each other, they weren't sharing. There's a lot of guilt and shame that was surrounding the family, and it just there wasn't a lot of freedom in the interpersonal relationships that my siblings, my aunts and uncles, my nephews, cousins, we just didn't have with each other. And by going through that and seeking out the truth through that process, there's been a reunification of a very good portion of my family.
Awesome.
But then at the same time, there's also been a portion of my family that has really separated. And I've created, by seeking out truth and making public some of my writings about behaviors and things that I've been having to deal with through the generations of my family, I've become unintentionally absent from a portion of my family's life. Not because I've chosen to cut anybody off, not because I've chosen to not be involved in their life, but because I don't get the invite to Christmas, I don't get the invite to Thanksgiving, birthday parties, stuff like that, because I'm saying no to behaviors, and because I've said yes to what's true.
Right.
And then I've rejected the falsehoods, the narratives that have been created throughout the years.
Mm-hmm. Now, as much as you want or you don't want, can you just give myself and the listeners maybe like an example of one of these generational issues or some of the things that you've tried to correct?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of the things that I've been talking about in interpersonal relationships, like flexing the wrong muscles in your personality, not being aware of deficiencies, having blind spots and stuff like that. That's directly related to the generational behaviors that have been going on in our family. There's a history of extreme narcissism and lying in my family, and because of it, there's someone who's not named is completely alone at this point, and there's a pathway that's being created for someone else to go down that same path, and they're bringing other people with them. And it's sad to see, and it hurts. But in the quest for truth that I talked about, there's been a lot of us that have been able to unite. And but with narcissism, it's really hard. And honestly, like I'm scared to death because I know I have that deficiency in my personality. and it's something that I'm definitely aware of, and that's why I think the more that I can have my private self match my public self, the more accountable I'm going to be to as many people as possible. So if those deficiencies do come up and I do stop being authentic, then I do start creating, false narratives and gaslighting people, someone will step up and say something to me.
Right.
And I want to recognize that, and I want to be able to sit down and analyze what I'm doing, make sure my motivation is correct with what I'm doing. So that's the generational thing. And then honestly, like it's as easy as me just like, calling my brother and be like, bro, I'm struggling with this, and like this is something that, that we were taught to do, I think, and him saying, yes, you're right, let's, how are you going to handle it? What's going on? Same thing with my sister, my aunt and uncle, and just making myself available with no agenda,
right.
Other than just really trying to connect. And it's difficult because that's not how I was raised.
Right. Just man to man, Jeremy, I just want to commend you, man, because, I mean, all of us have issues. We all have struggles. No human being is perfect, and we all have different ancestral things going on. And I want to commend you, man, and give you credit, because for you just to even recognize that and have the heart of like, hey, this is like generation after generation after generation, and it's going to stop with me, and I'm going to take myself and my kids, into a different direction and hopefully create something new. So good on you, man. That's really powerful stuff, because like we said, I think before we started the podcast, it's like most people, they don't even have the wherewithal to recognize that type of stuff. They just kind of they're a part of the generation, and they just part of that cycle, and it keeps going. So thank you for touching on that a little bit and being open and real and transparent with that, because that's some powerful stuff you just shared. So thank you very much. That's really, really cool. So I want to touch on you being an athlete. From your Instagram, it looks like you're hardcore into rock climbing and then snow skiing. Is that correct? Those are kind of your two jams. Or?
Ice climbing, snow skiing.
Okay,
and,
so
big mountains.
Just kind of share your heart in regards to rock climbing, skiing, and kind of how that really lights your fire inside.
Yeah, I think it started out as I really wanted to ski, and that's why I moved out. Wanted to get to Colorado, and all the guys that I was hanging out with were climbers, and so they started teaching me other skills. And when you're in the big mountains, you want to ski big lines, you got to climb up to them and make it happen. So it just started happening. And one of the things too is I think because of the pain that happened, the trauma that happened when I was younger in my life, and obviously, wrestling with these generational issues, and not really knowing how to handle them through my 20s and into my 30s, my outlet was these extreme sports, and just really being able to compartmentalize what was going on in my life, get into the flow state, and all I'm thinking about is that. And there's definitely some cathartic thing that happens when I get back from the big mountains and I have a big accomplishment, whether I failed or not, but just the experience of what I went through that has helped heal me throughout the years. Beautiful. And it's given me, and also, we touched on this before, I had that fear of rejection, because of the isolation I had to. This was something that I was really good at, and I was welcomed in the community pretty significantly. So it was really easy, and it really fed a part of my soul that was hurting when I moved out here.
Okay, cool. So in regards to like rock climbing and stuff, what type of like training and your skiing? So those are very physical activities, physical sports. So is there kind of like a training regimen that you practice to kind of prepare yourself and be ready for the rock climbing and the skiing and any other adventurous things that you enjoy?
Yeah, do a lot of cardio because the big mountain days, you might have a 1,500, 2,000 foot climb that you're doing, and then you're dropping into another 2,000 foot couloir to ski out. So there's two different sports. There's a lot of cardio goes into that, and then I don't do a lot of like CrossFit. These
Yeah.
other guys, I'm very specific with just doing a lot of squats.
Yeah.
And I'll get on the stepper
Mm-hmm.
if the weather's not good. I'll do that for 2 hours straight.
Yeah.
There's a mountain that's close to my house, Mount Morrison. It's about 2.2 miles and 1,500 feet of elevation gain. It's just basically straight up.
Yeah.
And just try to get out and do that as much as possible too.
Cool.
So, but it's one of those things where these sports are so specific that you can do all the training you want with them. But really, what gets you comfortable with the environment being cold, being the wind blasting in your face, having to take your glove off to put an ice screw in, or worry about rocking on your rack, while it's below freezing. You just got to be out in the environment. You got to
Right.
get out there and do it.
Cool.
So, and it's just it's habitual, and you gotta get yourself comfortable with what you're dealing with.
Awesome. So in regards to nutrition, is there like a specific protocol that you have for nutrition? Are you super dialed in with that, or is it a little bit more open-ended and kind of just free-flowing?
It's a little more open-ended. I mean, I do try to eat. I eat a lot of meat and vegetables.
Okay.
I don't eat a ton of starches, but there's a lot of times though where we were up in Rocky Mountain National Park the last couple of days, and we did a couple of huge lines, and I ate a 20-inch pizza when I got down. So you gotta feed the
absolutely.
feed the body, and it's just it's like a lot of ultra runners and stuff
Yeah.
like that are the same way, where it's you need the calories, and you can't be working on your physique and your
Right.
Your mirror image for the fitness show.
Right.
It's a little different.
Yeah.
Where, you're burning close to 10,000 calories in a day.
For sure.
And you don't have you can't carry that anywhere close to that amount of food up there
Right.
with you.
Right.
Oh.
What's the importance of like sleep and recovery to kind of keep you prepped for these adventures?
I honestly think like sleep is probably one of the most important things, although like most of my friends don't think I sleep at all. But I try to get 6 to 7 hours a night at least, and it's very, very rare I can get over 7 hours.
Right.
But that's when I feel best is when I've slept well.
Yeah. Is there like regular like massage or chiropractic work or anything like that?
Yeah,
that's in
I
this
see
field?
that. I'm an older athlete, and you got to take care of the body, and so I have a massage therapist I see regularly. Although she'll probably call BS on that because I haven't seen her for over a month right now. She's listening to this.
Maybe this is the catalyst to go see her.
Yeah, the
huh?
catalyst to go see her.
Yeah.
But I see a chiropractor once a week.
Cool.
And that's really key. Try to do cold tub, hot tub routine as well. Stretching as much as possible. That's part of one of the things I try to do in the morning is do a little stretching right away as well.
So I want to just touch on the word consistency. What is the value in consistency for somebody who is in your shoes? You have a lot going on. You're a dad. You've got all these athletic endeavors. You've got your own business. What's the importance of consistency in your life, and for somebody who wants to be a high performer and just kind of live that above average, above normal life?
Well, I think you have to be consistent with one aspect of each of the things that you're trying to have. You don't have to. I think a lot of people get overwhelmed with the word consistency because it means that you have to be, up at 4:30 in the morning,
Right.
doing this before you even eat breakfast, and you have to do the same thing every day. I don't think that's the case. I think what you have to do is you have to be consistent at least one thing throughout the day. So like, with business, I try to do one thing. I have time block schedule set up. So like, for 2 hours on a Tuesday, I'm calling clients. That doesn't mean I'm calling clients every day.
Right.
But and the same thing goes with training. It doesn't mean I'm out doing squats every day or anything. But there's one aspect. I try to work on one thing every day. Whether that's if I don't have time, I go down to my gear room and I just hang on the rock rings. For 15 minutes. And just try to do something. So that's the consistency, and I think too, like if there's a younger athlete, one of the things that I always tell younger athletes is like the difference between my 40-year-old self and my 20-year-old self is is you function under the shroud of the word potential as a younger athlete, and as an older athlete, I like to use the word capabilities. I know what I'm capable of, and I can train to those capabilities. Very, sometimes efficiently in my mind, in other people's minds maybe not efficiently, but getting to the where you can figure out your capabilities as quickly as possible, I think is going to make you most successful in life, because then you understand where your weaknesses are, and you can bring people into your life to compensate for those weaknesses. So then you know what you can attain potential.
Cool. What's the importance or value of having mentors? Either somebody that maybe that's physically in your life, or maybe somebody now with social media, you can kind of have a mentor or observe somebody afar off, and they can really encourage you and maybe give you some motivation. So what's the value for you, Jeremy, of having a mentor or mentors in your life?
Well, I think it's a different, because I wrestle with so many different thoughts and so many different things I'm dealing with every day. It's really easy to go down a rabbit hole and really just be like, oh, this is what I need to do, and I'm just going to go do this. And when you're bouncing it off somebody else and they're asking you hard questions about what the direction that you're taking with something, you tend to take a step back and be like, whoa, I can't just throw myself that way. I'm going to have all these deficiencies along the way. And so being able to, mentorship isn't always accountability partner.
Right.
I think it's just bouncing. I think one of the biggest things is like bouncing big ideas off of people. Like, I'm going to go do this. And having that person, having people in your life that they may not understand your business, but they understand business. They may not understand athletics that you're in, but they understand athletes.
Right.
And so you bounce things off them, you tell them how you're going to do something, and to watch their eyes kind of go back in their head and be like, I don't understand how you're going to do this. And if you can't explain it to somebody who, in a simple way, of a direction that you're going to head, how are you going to be successful heading that direction?
Cool.
So I think that's the biggest thing that I have with the couple of mentors that I have in my life.
Awesome. Yeah. So I want to touch on fatherhood. You have kids, and like you said earlier, it's a big part of your life. It's a driving force in your life. What does fatherhood mean to you, and how has fatherhood changed you as a man?
I think it's given me the motivation to continue to grow. I think a lot of the things that I've discussed today with you, I don't think I would have ever really dealt with if I hadn't had kids. I think I would have been, and I probably would have given into a lot of the deficiencies in my personality.
Right.
Without the kids.
Mm-hmm.
But there's just something about this unconditional love that you're receiving from a child, and knowing that, and that you don't want to hurt them, and you want them to have a different life than what you had as a kid, and you want them to get more and be as successful as possible. And so with that driving force, that enhances the level of change that I wanted in my life. And it's just amazing.
Yeah.
They just blow me away. I mean, I would say like the biggest thing that I learned from my kids is I don't always have to be right. My word doesn't have to be absolute. I'm not infallible. I don't always. They can question me. They can ask me why, and I can say, hey, you know what? I made a mistake, and I can apologize for the things that I've done. And doing that with them has been so enriching in my life, and being able to say, like, I think one of the biggest things is like people aren't willing to say I don't know. And in life, and especially to their kids, and saying I don't know, but why don't we go find out? And I think it's so powerful. Saying you don't know something is so powerful, because the kids are like, oh, well, let's go. That you can actually help them grow by saying that and showing them how to find out information and find the answers that they're looking for. And it's just been all those things have allowed me to just it's made me more comfortable with who I am.
Cool. Yeah, and by what you just said about saying I don't know, that is authenticity that you are demonstrating to your kids, which is something that you just we've discussed in this conversation, is like trying to be more authentic. And I think when you say I don't know, like I'm a school teacher and I say I don't know, but I'll find out for you. It's very humbling for me to say that to, you know, a 12, 13-year-old, but then that's showing them that you're real. You're being very authentic in that moment. So that's great. Is there like one lesson that, or maybe a couple lessons that you're really trying to focus on instilling into your kids' lives during this season of their life?
I think one thing is definition of words. Okay, because I think oftentimes we throw around words. One of the most misused words in our society, I think, is respect. Mm-hmm. I don't even want my kids to use that word, because what does respect mean? It means something different to every person. So when you say, I want to be treated with respect, or I want to give respect to this person, or I'm giving respect to that person, what are you actually giving that person? How are you showing that respect to that person? And it's kind of it's a little bit of a pet peeve, and I go overboard a little bit with it.
No, go for it, man.
But it's one of those things where it's like, are you showing love, care, and empathy? Are you bowing down to worship this person? Or are you genuflecting? Are you losing yourself because you're giving this person respect? What is going on behind this word that we use that's respect? And so I talk to my kids about that all the time. It's like, what does that mean to you? And even like with love and just other words, these words that we just toss around all the time, is like, I really try to break down and say, what's the action? Is it a verb? You know, what are you doing with this? You know, are you showing care, and that's the love you're showing to this person? Are you vacuuming the room, and so you're doing an act of service? Is that how you're showing love? And then we break down all that stuff, and it's really, I think it's given the kids, like, there's a calmness when we break down these words and I start discussing, and there's sometimes their eyes roll back in their head and they're just like, Dad, come on, you know, just say this. Right. But I really just, I want to challenge them so that they know when they feel something, they know what they're feeling, and when they give something, they know what they're giving. And it's not just a word that they're tossing around.
Right. That's cool, man. That's some deep stuff, because I think a lot of times in life we just accept what has always been, you know what I mean? And we just kind of shrug our shoulders and say, well, this is what the adult in my life, or the people I'm supposed to quote unquote be respecting, is telling me to do, so I'm going to do it. And I think that can lead into a lot of issues, you know what I mean? Like that kind of that blind faith of following people. So I think it's great that you're challenging your kids to kind of like, what do these words mean? And, you know, are you putting action to your words? And like, it's okay to question. It's okay to be like, hey, I don't have a good feeling inside about this, and I'm not going to do that. So I think that's super powerful, especially being able to educate kids in that direction, because again, it kind of goes back to the hamster and the wheel thing, or somebody going on the treadmill. They might be moving, but they're not going anywhere. And so often, you know, even like, you know, people get stuck into cults and all these different things, or, you know, religions or politics. It's like, they're just like going with the flow. They're not questioning. They're like, hey, is this actually right? Is this, you know, should I be talking this way? You know, and that's really cool, man. That's and so does that maybe, for you to try to teach those lessons to your kids, that had to come from somewhere for you personally? Does that maybe go back to some of those earlier childhood experiences? And so you're just really trying to instill into your kids, like, hey, it's okay to question, like, what does this mean? Is that kind of where the origin is of all that?
I think there's some generational things that have driven that through just our society in general.
Yeah.
I would say, you know, the baby boomer generation versus the Gen X generation, which I'm a part of, is there's you know, we were never relinquished control of the country. For my generation, you know, the baby boomers still really have it,
right, and
they will have it until the millennials take over effectively. And so a lot of what I'm battling is this, I would say there's a generational behavior, not only within my family, but within the baby boomer generation, where respect, the word respect, has been bastardized so much that it's taught to us that it's in the eye of the receiver, not the giver. And so that's a lot of the the motivation to teach my kids that has come with me wrestling with how I relate to that generation, whether it's through my business or through my family. And so respect was how I started that. And I started that with my 10-year-old, and I started teaching her that, and now it's going down to Mabel and AJ.
Yeah.
aka the dude.
The dude, I love it, man. Yeah. Cool. All right, man. That's some deep, legit stuff, and I love it. So, if there's like one lesson overall up to this point in your life that you wouldn't mind sharing to the listeners, that's kind of just like that you've learned, like what's that greatest life lesson up to this point for you, Jeremy?
I think it's summed up as, I mean, just that it's that old saying is, no matter where you go, there you are.
Perfect.
You know, and so you need to work on yourself every day, and don't think that just a change in geography. Don't think because you have something. Don't think because you bought that new car, that house. Don't think because you climbed that mountain that you've ever arrived or that you're going to change magically. It's really about the journey and enjoying the steps that take there. That's going to really change you and make you into a different person that you're becoming. So if you can enjoy the journey on the pathway to get what you want, you're just going to be the same person when you get there.
Sweet, man. So we've been going for exactly an hour now, so I'm just going to try to wrap things up. If somebody's going to visit Colorado, or if somebody's living in Colorado currently, maybe they don't get out to explore very often, is there maybe one or two places, and this might be hard for you because I know you visit a lot of places, you're doing a lot of gnarly things, but just to kind of keep it the time limit or whatever, but is there like one or two places within Colorado that you would suggest anybody to check out?
My favorite two spots are Rocky Mountain National Park and the San Juans down around Ouray, Red Mountain Pass area. Those are my two favorite places and must-sees.
Awesome. Now, what about like maybe the United States or like kind of world around the world? Was there maybe a place or two that you really appreciate?
Oh, Patagonia down in Argentina.
Cool.
Just absolutely amazing. Alaska is, I mean, if you know, it's amazing. I've been in Talkeetna so many times, and you can just see people are just like, why am I here? And then, they take the plane ride and they go around and they see Denali, or it comes out of the clouds, and they're just like, oh, this is amazing. And just landing, the ability to land on a glacier in Alaska and just see that terrain, and it's just otherworldly. When you get on there and you don't smell anything because it's just all snow and everything's frozen around you, and then you come back into town and all of a sudden you're smelling the dirt and the trees and everything. It's just a really cool way to know that you're alive. Mm-hmm. It's just absolutely amazing. So
and I think this is probably going to stem from your childhood and just kind of having that, being able to be free roaming and being outside a lot. Does the outdoors make you come alive?
Absolutely, yeah. If I'm in Denver for more than a couple of days straight, I start to go stir crazy.
Right. Yep.
And need to get out and get on top of a mountain. Just big. I mean, it's just like I think when you get more comfortable with yourself, one of the ways that you can describe is you start looking at life in more of a linear plane, right? And you can jump from place to place and see things. And I think climbing mountains is the same way. You get up high, get out of town, and you just look and you can just see like as far as your eye can see, and it's just something that just clears my head.
Yeah.
And be able to do that. But it's definitely innate. It's definitely something that I grew up with, just having adventures in the woods and running around with guns and chasing animals and stuff.
Yeah.
So it just it's something that's definitely part of who I am.
Cool, man. Yeah, I grew up myself and my younger brother, we lived in city limits, but we had like 3 or 4 acres. Had a little creek that ran and a little bridge we had to cross, but we had like wild fox and deer in our backyard. Really, really cool. But we were outside. We played cowboys and Indians, cops and robbers. We were either over at this neighbor's or that neighbor's, or we were way back in the woods, like exploring. And for me personally, like it was so important to have that experience. And I don't see the youth of today, really, a lot of them not able to have those experiences. And I think being in touch with nature, being in touch with the outdoors, getting dirty and all that type of stuff, I think that's very important, very valuable, just as human beings and where we come from, So is that something that you really try to focus on with your own kids personally, is getting them outside and not allowing them to, play video games all day or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, we don't even have a video game council.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Love it, man.
So if you follow, if anybody follows me on social media, they'll see the kids out climbing and on rocks and skiing. Try to ski with them as much as possible.
Cool.
So just really try to, get them out. And I think, doing something that's hard, that they may not think that they're capable of, where there's a little risk involved, is really good too, because it allows them to trust in their abilities. And again, like that whole knowing what you're capable of, being able to trust your abilities and be confident in yourself is huge in childhood development, I think.
Absolutely, yeah, man. You're doing a great job of passing on some amazing tools to your kids, because I mean, being a school teacher, I mean, it's crazy, man. Like, a lot of these kids are coming from some pretty messed up environments, and they're not getting these lessons. So it's great, dude. It's really cool to see a father, a man who is, passing on some great tools and some great gifts to their kids, and they're only gonna excel and benefit from that. So, Jeremy, last question I have for you to wrap things up today is, what sets your soul on fire?
Oh, that's my passion point.
Yeah, man. That's what gets you fired up? What gets you just going? What's your jam?
What's my jam? It
can be more than one.
Yeah,
I got a couple.
Well,
but
I think So you want to see a tear come to my eye? It's when one of my kids that grasp a concept, has some kind of emotional thing that they're dealing with, or they do something rad. Like Mabel scores 5 goals in a soccer game or something.
Right.
That just is absolutely amazing. Just seeing them succeed in life at what they want is absolutely amazing. Me personally, man, soloing ice. I love soloing ice, or ripping a huge line in the mountains that under less than ideal conditions. On my skis, I like being able to do something where somebody's like, whoa. They take a step back and they're like, wow, you just did that. And because I feel that way myself. And so to see, when I walk away from something and you just get so excited about it, that's the passion point. Is just getting out and, being physically and mentally exhausted after some kind of effort in the mountains is just, I couldn't ask for anything more. Good
deal. Yeah, just you talking about that, you lit up, man. So that's really, really cool. So, at this point in the interview, Jeremy, if somebody wants to reach out to you, if you have sponsors and things of that nature, Instagram handle, website, whatever you got for us, go ahead and share that, please.
Yeah, my handle across the board is J Ski Climb, just the letter J, ski and climb. And if anybody has any questions about supplements I might take, my diet, vitamins, my skis, technology that I'm using in the hills, whether it's batteries, solar, however I'm surviving on the glacier when I go to Alaska or Patagonia, I'm more than happy to direct message. Or if people have questions about what I'm dealing with personally and how I'm going on this path to try to be as authentic as I can, I'm definitely willing to have a conversation and help enrich anybody else's life that has a desire to do that themselves.
Great. And I just want to thank you again, Jeremy, for your time today. And I kind of had a feeling this morning when I was just doing a little research on your Instagram and things like that our conversation was going to go deep and we're going to talk about some real things, and we definitely did. So thank you for being open. Thank you for your authenticity, and thank you again for your time and being willing to share your story. So. Cool. So listeners, I just want to thank you once again for tuning into the 127 Fit podcast. If you guys want to reach out to me, you can reach me on Instagram at 127fitness. Facebook is at Quentin Vars. Website, just some of my writings. It's a blog site. It's 127fitness.com. And then if you guys could do me a huge favor, please like, subscribe, share, and then most importantly, especially within the iTunes app, leave a 5-star review for the podcast. And then if you think you or one of your friends or somebody that you know of would be a great guest for the podcast, you can email me, and that email is 127fit@gmail.com. And I'm also always open to positive, negative, or indifferent feedback. I want to make this podcast the best that I can with what I have. And so if you want to shoot me an email, again, 127fit@gmail.com, and just let me know what you think. That'd be super cool. And then per the usual, I will leave you with Proverbs 24:10, which states, if you faint in the day of adversity, your strength is small. This time until next time, I will catch you guys later.